Hello and good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Soraya Mia. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission believes fugitive businessman Joe Lowe is hiding in Macau. According to an Al Jazeera report, the MACC says this was confirmed by several individuals who spotted Joe Lowe in the city.
The MACC's revelation comes weeks after the arrest of a relatively unknown suspect in the 1MDB scandal, Kee Kok Tiam. Kee had been deported from Macau for overstaying his visa and was arrested when he arrived at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Following an interview with MACC officers, Kee was released as the anti-graft agency said no charges had been laid against him. The MACC also reportedly said Kee confirmed he met Joe Lowe and a number of other 1MDB fugitives in Macau. An Interpol red notice for Joe Lowe was issued in 2018, while Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the government was negotiating with authorities overseas to secure his return to Malaysia.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim lambasted Kedah Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Sanusi Mat Noor for claiming Penang is still under the ownership of Kedah. Anwar said Sanusi should understand and follow the federal constitution before making claims of ownership of Penang.
Walaupun ada perjanjian negara itu setahun dulu, 1000 tahun dulu, dia ada perjanjian mutakhir perubahan Persekutuan Tanah Melayu, Malaysia, dia itu jelas. Ini nak ucap dari segi sandiwara politik soal lain, tapi sebagai seorang menteri besar, saya fikir wajar terikat dengan undangan. Saya boleh komen ini berdasarkan ulasan hukum negara yang cukup keras dalam bidang ini, yaitu menghormati perjanjian perlembagaan yang diperkenan oleh semua raja-raja Melayu termasuk Sultan Kedah.
Yesterday, Sanusi was reported as saying Perak and Perlis are the only states that have a border with Kedah. According to Article 1 of the Constitution of Malaysia, Penang and Kedah are two separate states, and territories of the states can only be altered by Parliament with the consent of the respective states. Meanwhile, the Transport Ministry has announced 3 projects in Kedah estimated to cost over 500 million ringgit. Minister Anthony Loke said this was in an effort to enhance transport services facilities in the north.
The 3 projects are to upgrade the Kuala Kedah Terminal and Jetty, the procurement of 12 sets of 3 car sets 3CS for the North Commuter Project, and the construction of a covered motorcycle parking spaces with lifts at 4 KTMB stations in the state. The first project was aimed at replacing the old building with a new terminal to allow the accommodation of up to 3,000 passengers at a time, compared to the current 800. Meanwhile, the main scope of the second project was to supply 12 sets of 3CS for the Butterworth Padang Besar and Butterworth Padang Rengas routes to increase capacity. Anthony added that covered motorcycle parking will be constructed at the Alor-Setar, Anak Bukit and Kobah railway stations through collaboration with the Railway Asset Corporation.
The KL High Court has allowed Bersatu to challenge a freezing order by the MACC on the party's accounts and a travel ban on President Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. Judge Dato Ahmad Kamal Mat Shahid said Bersatu had satisfied the legal requirement for the court to hear the application. In March, Bersatu filed an application seeking leave to challenge the freezing of the party's bank accounts. It claimed the order was made in bad faith. Muhyiddin claimed the travel ban was wrongly imposed on him and that he was not notified of it. The former PM also said the ban was aimed at tarnishing his political reputation. However, the court did not grant Bersatu's application for interim access to its frozen accounts. The party sought access to its accounts to use the money to pay for daily operations and rent. It also sought for the release of 6 million ringgit from its accounts to campaign for the upcoming 6 state polls. But the judge said this would mean interfering in the power of the MACC in exercising its power to make a variation order. In other news, the Health White Paper will be presented to the Cabinet for approval next week before being tabled in Parliament. The paper aims to reform the healthcare system by ensuring its sustainability through a national health insurance scheme. Health Minister Dr. Zaliha Mustafa previously said the current level of healthcare spending was inadequate to maintain a sustainable system capable of meeting the needs of an aging population and potential future pandemics. Commenting on the shortage of nurses at private health institutions, she said the situation was likely due to distribution problems, emphasizing the need for allocation measures. One measure being considered was recruitment of staff from abroad. Based on a survey involving 103 hospitals in November 2022, an additional 9,224 nurses will be required between 2023 to 2025 to fulfill healthcare staffing needs.
Malaysia has achieved significant progress in preschool education over the past decade. According to a World Bank report launched today, enrollment rates in the country increased from 67% in 2009 to 84% in 2020.
The report highlighted that government expenditure on preschool education has more than tripled since 2010, rising from 247 million ringgit to 887 million ringgit in 2021. However, it also noted that public funding remained low, with only 0.13% of the GDP allocated for pre-primary education in 2019. Despite the goals set by the Malaysian Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025 to achieve universal preschool enrollment by 2020, World Bank said this target has not been met and was pushed to 2025. It added that the pandemic has led to a decline in enrollment rates among 4- and 5-year-old children, attributed to factors such as low awareness and lack of available preschool seats, especially in rural areas. Meanwhile, the report said half of preschool teachers do not possess the minimum qualification of a diploma in early childhood care and education. It noted that inadequate training, low salaries and unclear career pathways also contributed to low teacher quality in the country.
Early childhood education provides the foundation for a child's development and growth, playing a crucial role in shaping the nation's human capital. Dr. Aya Rinkanen, Senior Education Specialist of the World Bank, discusses solutions to provide equal education opportunities for all children in Malaysia.
First, there needs to be access to education for all the children in Malaysia. So access is the first issue. And the preschools need to be close enough to children. They need to be affordable for the families. And that is kind of a key question to get all the children in schools. Then the second thing is the quality of education. And with quality, we mean that the teachers who are teaching our preschool children know what they are doing. They have the minimum qualification as a teacher training, but they also have opportunity for continuous professional development so they can keep up with the demands of the changing world and the demands of the children's individual needs and the community's needs.
Governance and financing are also critical enablers in ensuring equal access to preschool education.
Every time we arrange services for our children, there needs to be enough resources so we can really have the quality services that we want to have. So this would need a kind of a specific budget, but when we talk about resources, money is not always the only thing we talk about. It's also the teachers, the school venues, the learning environment and the atmosphere that we have towards the education. But on the governments, it's also important that we have the core curricula that is on spot. Every teacher understands the curricula and it's implemented in schools. There needs to be good regulations, how the private preschools, for example, are registered or licensed. And it also needs coordination between the different ministries because preschool education and early childhood education lies under several ministries and organizations in Malaysian context.
Time for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Macam mana permainan tadi? Bagus, tapi rambut tak bermaya dan nipis. Nak potong tak? Biarlah panjang. Sunsilk Strong and Long Baharu. Dengan biotin dan aloe vera. Menyuburkan dan menguatkan dari akar ke hujung. Biarkan rambut kuat dan panjang. Sunsilk.
Engkau adalah yang terunggul. Apabila kau hidup untuk detik gemilang ni, kau sedia untuk menggalah segala bebanan dan bertekad untuk menjadi harapan untuk semua.
Welcome back. Authorities in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi, are reducing the use of street lights as it braces itself for power shortages caused by heat waves. With record temperatures expected to persist until June, public lighting is being curtailed to meet rising demand for air conditioning.
Temperatures in Hanoi this week are expected to range between 26 to 38 degrees Celsius. To deal with this, the city will adjust its public lighting schedule by delaying its activation by half an hour and switching it off half an hour earlier. It is also reducing street lights along some major roads and in public parks by 50%. EVN, Vietnam's state utility, warned that the national power system would be stretched due to the sharp rise in electricity consumption, while water levels at some hydropower dams were lower than normal. Last week, the country called for electrical devices to be turned off when not in use and for air conditioning to be kept above 26 degrees Celsius.
Meanwhile, over 4,800 people have been evacuated in the Philippines as Typhoon Mawa passes over the country's eastern waters. Schools and offices have been closed and flights have been grounded. Authorities issued warnings for potential landslides, thunderstorms, and flooding.
While the typhoon is not making direct landfall in the Philippines, it is expected to bring up to 4 inches of rain to some regions. Mawar is currently moving in a generally northwestward direction, affecting the Batanese Islands and coastal areas of Luzon Island, the most populous province in the country. Despite losing some of its intensity since last week, forecasters in the Philippines warn that Mawar remains dangerous, with maximum sustained winds of 155 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 190 kilometers per hour. Taiwan and Japan have also issued weather advisories as Typhoon Mawa is expected to exit the Philippines within the next 2 days. Last week, Mawa wreaked havoc on the U.S. territory of Guam, causing widespread damage to property and power cuts.
North Korea will launch its first military spy satellite in June for live monitoring of U.S. military activities. Pyongyang said this was in response to joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea in recent months, drawing criticism over the satellite's potential use of banned missile technology.
The exact launch date of the spy satellite has not been specified, but North Korea has notified Japan of the planned launch between May 31st and June 11th. Earlier this month, leader Kim Jong-un was reported to have inspected the finished military spy satellite and approved its launch plan. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said any North Korean launch that uses ballistic missile technology, including those used to put a satellite in space, would violate multiple UN resolutions, while Japan has ordered its defense force to shoot down the satellite or debris if any entered the Japanese territory. The launch would be North Korea's latest step in a series of missile launches and weapons tests, including one of a new solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile last month.
In other news, China successfully launched a spacecraft, taking 3 new astronauts, including the country's first civilian, to its space station. The launch marks China's 5th crew mission to its space station since its first sent astronauts in 2021.
According to the China Manned Space Agency, the Long March 2F rocket carrying the spaceship took off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert shortly after 9:30 a.m. local time. The Shenzhou 16 crew will conduct scientific experiments and maintenance on space station equipment for 5 months. They will overlap briefly with the 3 astronauts currently on board the Tiangong station, who will then return to Earth after completing their 6-month mission. China has ramped up its efforts in space exploration and research with an aim to launch a crewed mission to the moon by 2030. It plans to send 2 crewed space missions to Tiangong every year. The next will be Shenzhou 17 with an expected launch in October.
That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Soraya Mia, and we'll see you again.